Back. Last stream for today. And the reason for that being that I have my family coming over, so they'll be here very, very shortly. So questions and answers on this one will be very swift. So make sure you start typing stuff in. In fact, I would start typing questions right now. You will find the start time for this video down in the description. But it will go unlisted, and therefore you'll have to go through your notifications to access this video. It will be available to patrons later on. I will do an edited version so you can actually access it later on, but it'll be when I have time to actually edit this down to a format that I think is going to be suitable for YouTube. Now, if you haven't been part of my live streams before, I normally present everything first and then I open it up for questions and answers. Now, you might have noticed that I've done a couple of videos on backgrounds in the past, and I'm not just talking about background, I'm actually talking about backstories. It's a topic that's come up many times before on other channels, and there seems to be a particular prevalence for doing it in a particular way. But this is supposed to talk about the key things that are important, or the things that I think are important. So we're going to get straight into this. So sit back, grab some food, grab some drink, and I'm going to talk about backstories and character backgrounds, that sort of thing. A very important topic as it happens, particularly if you want to keep your campaign alive and intact, because sometimes they don't stay alive or intact due to problems with the interpretation of the concept of a character backstory and background, and then the dungeon master's view. And the players and the dungeon masters don't always meet up in the same place. So hopefully at this point YouTube has figured out how to actually interpret my face. How's it going, Carl? How's it going, Fred? And Jean, I will get to your question at the end of this by all means. So let us swing on through, shall we? Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I'm going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, the topic for today is very, very specific. We're talking about what character backstory or background do you need? What do you absolutely need to have developed for the Dungeon Master and for yourself? I'm going to be talking about this at the perspective of what the Dungeon Master will expect from you as a player, rather than talking about it from the importance of what you think as a player is important. I'm going to talk about what the Dungeon Master thinks important. Certainly this is my own perspective. I'm going to say it right now, when it comes to a background and background stories or anything like that, I really think that a novel is not a helpful tool. It's something that as a Dungeon Master I do not have time to read. A lot of Dungeon Masters really want something that's short and to the point. And actually bullet points, I know people frown on bullet points, but there's nothing wrong with bullet points. I really want just the key information that'll get me the stuff I need. Now, when it comes to backgrounds, everybody has a different view about the key elements. There's actually only one and really important element or key required for a backstory on a character, and I'm going to leave that to the last topic. I'm going to talk about everything else leading up to that. So the main questions you need to ask are these. Your first question with regard to your backstory is, where did you come from? Where were you born? Or were you created? What race are you? Were you brought up by a family, or were you on your own? Is your family, do you have brothers and sisters? Are they alive or dead? Often it's the case that players will decide that their family are all dead and perished, and it's one of those sort of things. Or were you brought up by a beholder by some strange means? Who knows? Okay, the next question, number 2, is what did your character do in the past? What sort of job did they have? Did they have a career? This is where you start using your backgrounds, the actual mechanical elements that Dungeons and Dragons 5e has. What sort of training did you have? What sort of school did you go to? Did you suffer some sort of trauma? Are you the sort of character who's running the sort of Conan the Barbarian on the wheel of pain as you move a grinding wheel? Or are you the sort of character who spent most of their life in a privileged location with a lot of wealth, sort of spending your time just relaxing, recreational, feeding yourself, smoking, that sort of thing. Is that the kind of backstory you have? Is that your past? So that's number 3. Now number 2. Number 3 is your characters. How did your character learn their adventuring trade or skills? How did they develop their training to get to where they are? Whatever they did in the past, they must have had to shift what they were doing. So they've had to have some sort of career development or a career shift in their life. Something happened that occurred. So why are they picking up the class or background that they have? But more about the class. This is really, we're starting to narrow in on the actual mechanics of your character now. So class is important. Who trained you? Who trained your character? What sort of training did you have? Are you the sort of character, just like Doctor Strange, who wound up going into Tibet and wound up in the mountains, training with some monks, and find themselves with a whole lot of sorcerers and doing all sorts of bizarre things with magic and rings? Is that the sort of character you have? Okay, that's number 3. Now, number 4 is really important. I've talked about links before. Your character link with the members of the party. That is actually fairly important. Why do you trust these members? Why do they trust you? It's not just about your trust, it needs to be about their trust. If you have no link and connection, and the only link and connection you have with the other characters in your party is we met in a tavern and we're doing it for gold, it's a very weak link. And that's actually a very important aspect to the game to stop it deteriorating into a mess. I know a lot of dungeon masters find this frustrating when a player brings a character and it's a lone wolf character and it doesn't get along with anybody in the group. You can't do that. You need to have some people that you actually get along with. You don't have to get along with everybody, but you have to get along with the most of the group most of the time. Okay, so we've done all 4. The last one, number 5, is the one that I think is by far the most important. And I'm going to select the one image that I think sums it up the best. And that is the Wizard of Oz. What I'm talking about here is what your character is motivated by. Why are they pursuing the adventuring hook or adventure hook that your dungeon master should have given you? If you are a dungeon master, it's really important that you actually make sure that you give them enough information to be able to tie their character into the motivations of the adventure rather than not be able to tie it in. So do that ahead of time. It's a really easy, simple process. Yes, it requires metagaming in some cases, but who cares? As long as it works. The most important factor for the dungeon master and for you is making sure that the motivation you have for your character is in line with the outcome or goals of the dungeon master's adventure. Now this might involve why the character is engaging in such risky adventuring activities or a career. It's certainly going to be revolving around the goals or motivations, and those motivations, as I said, your character's motivations need to be in line with the adventure. Now, the example of the Wizard of Oz. All of these characters are journeying to the Emerald City, and they're going to go see the Wizard of Oz. And the reasons, each one of them have a different reason and motivation or goal, but they're all heading to the same location. So our Dorothy just wants to go home, the Scarecrow just wants a brain, the Tin Man just wants a heart, and the Cowardly Lion just wants to be brave. Those are all different reasons for going to the same place or getting to the same goal, but they still have exactly the same goal ultimately. These are the most important elements of a backstory. Nothing else is really, all the rest is just like icing on the cake, but those are the things the Dungeon Master absolutely needs to have. Now, I will say right now that this is just my advice and my opinion, but I feel like these are the things that a lot of people seem to forget about. So I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters providing advice on how to play Dungeons and Dragons, and you're welcome to go and check those out. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing videos like this, I have a Patreon page where you can support me and get access to stuff that other people don't get access to. I also have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon down in the description. You'll find I also have a merchandise shelf underneath the video. And make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. I'm not gone. I need a drink of water though. I need some glasses. And I have limited time. I will bring it back to my face. If I've already scared you off, I do apologise. Now, I see somebody's already got a question in the chat, so I'm going to go straight to that. Just bring it back to my face so you can actually see a real person. Slides are nice, but I know talking to a person is always nice too. Okay. All right, so Carl, I see you were just talking about your last session last night where the player used one of the Lost Mine of Phandelver pre-made adventures. Those are all tied up. The good thing about those backstories on the pre-made adventures in the Dungeons & Dragons starter set, the original one, the very first one for 5e, which has the Lost Mine of Phandelver, all of those characters have some sort of link to the story. And it might not be the overall goal because you don't want to give that away, but it's still a really good way of doing it. And I reuse those character sheets many times. Okay, Jean, hopefully I got your name correct. Question, is it weird I watch this while I'm showering? No, it's not weird at all. I would like to point out that it's appropriate because I have dolphins and mermaids behind me swimming around. I'm under the sea. So the only way you could actually watch this and communicate with me is if you were under the sea. So you need to be in the shower. Oh, it's the saltwater time again. Yes, you do have your priorities straight. Okay, Carl, in your experience, how balanced are the backstories you can buy on Drive-Thru RPG? Okay, I don't know enough about them. I don't look at them enough, Carl, to be able to tell you. I tend to stick with the stuff that Wizards of the Coast puts out, but I would like to point out that when you start talking about game balance in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, it doesn't exist. Even if you just use the player's handbook, the designers deliberately made the game unbalanced. So even with the player's handbook, with what's in the player's handbook, if you use things like feats, multi-classing, or if you just play a wizard. I mean, a wizard is a significantly more useful individual in the long term. There's certain things that it can only do that the other characters will not be able to do. And they can certainly make a huge difference, particularly when you start dealing with some of the more challenging monsters and also tasks that they may be set by a dungeon master. Certain places that you can't go without casting spells. So I couldn't really advise you on that, unfortunately. Okay, serious question, Jean. We have a character who isn't meshing with the party because his character hates our bard. So there's a problem. So the only way that this is going to work is if they had a session 0 and they had a discussion. So the person playing the bard and the person playing whatever this other character is are good friends, and they've made an agreement amongst them that they will role play it but not interfere with the success of the group or interfere with the dynamics of the other players. So they need to be able to make it clear that essentially what's taking place is that they are going to go and, there's going to be some role play conflict, but they aren't going to turn it into real conflict. It requires mature individuals to do this. Oops. Would try to force playing into his backstory be okay. He seems super uninterested. Okay, so if he's already super uninterested and he's provided this backstory and he's working towards that, I'll tell you what's probably happening now. I'm only guessing, but when somebody decides that they're going to be in conflict with another member in the party, and their character is going to hate somebody else, like this bard, then what is happening is then if they're uninterested, they're trying to create conflict, and they feel that there isn't enough conflict and enough going on. And so, if anything, it is a strategy for sabotage and disruption. That tends to be what's going on. That's been my experience. Now, you can solve that by talking to them and saying, look, I don't want you to have your character butting heads with the bard character, because it's undermining the whole thing. So is there another way you can build your run your character in such a way that this isn't going to be the case? What is the arc going to go? Are we going from a backstory of them hating each other to they get to accept each other as friends, or they get along with each other? So if we can't move that and move there, and they're not willing to do that, and they start saying, "Oh, I'm just playing my character the way it is," that is just nonsense. You're welcome. But yeah, if they are not willing to, if they set up the character to be in conflict with another character, and they've not talked to the other player about doing this to get buy-in by them and agreement, then they're working against the group, and they're doing that deliberately because they either don't want to be there or they're bored. So you need to find out what will still keep the party together and still keep them interested. So yes. But make them do the work. You don't have to solve all these problems. You just need to point out the issues, and then they have to solve those problems. I'm not the sort of dungeon master, and I'm not going to give you advice where you have to provide all of the solutions that your players create because they made the problems in the first place. Okay. Madden, Canada. How's it going? How long have you been an old four-eyed perv? Really? That's the sort of question you're going to ask me? Get out of my live stream, man. See you later. Just bear with me. I'm just doing something. Yep. There we go. I won't be seeing him ever again. My gosh. Seriously? Okay, so are there any other questions? I think that's pretty much covered everything. Carl, flat joke. Haha, man, that's awkward. Yes. Yes, so for those of you who are unaware, I know that people can put comments in live chat, and I've got a lot of protections in place to make sure that it doesn't deteriorate in a group, particularly in a live stream, and also in my comments section. A lot of people are stupid enough to think that I won't read the comments and then respond to them. So I will report people who break the rules regarding your conduct on YouTube. And that's exactly what just happened. Okay? Right. And Fred, you're welcome. Carl, okay, came absolutely out of nowhere. Haha. Yes, it did. It really did. But then again, what do you do with trolls? You either ignore the troll or you report them. Done and dusted. Okay, Carl, must have been an Aussie. Can't expect much from that lot. Okay. Really, Carl? It's been my experience that it can be anybody from anywhere. So let's not go there. I'm not Australian. I'm from New Zealand, but yeah. And anyway, so that's beside the point. I think we've done and dusted. I think we've covered the topic. There don't seem to be any other questions or no more feedback. As I said, the key thing for me with regard to a character's backstory, and the most important thing, is always going to be essentially their motivation for pursuing the adventure that the Dungeon Master has provided. And that is where we will end. So, Go and have a good night, day, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Look after yourself and your family. Don't do anything foolish. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.